Now, we've talked about how President Obama is now relying on Bush administration officials for his rationale on declaring war on ISIS, and in the meanwhile, going to war and bombing all over the Middle East in several different countries. We've talked about the potential presidential nominee in 2016 for the Democrats being even more hawkish and more pro-war than President Obama. That's Hillary Clinton. Now, this sounds just like 2003 all over again, because we've got the party in power pushing for war. We've got Democrats who can't wait to agree with that, because in this case, it is a Democratic president. Republicans, of course, agree even more so. John McCain's on TV every day saying, kill them all, kill them all. Michelle Bachmann today is talking about how ISIS is Hitler. We have to go to war right away. Though what's the only missing element? The media. Now, back in 2003, they all helped the rush to war. And you had all the Judy Miller stories and the front page of the New York Times saying, oh my God, mushroom clouds, they've got all these weapons and they could be nuclear weapons and they could use them. It's nonsense, nonsense, nonsense. New York Times takes the articles about how they don't really have any kind of nuclear weapons, let alone any weapons of mass destruction, let alone any links to 9/11 or Al-Qaeda, and buries it in page 827. Now that's the New York Times. MSNBC at the time, run by conservatives, fires everyone on air. Phil Donahue, Jesse Ventura, Ashley Banfield gets put in a closet, literally, that says the Iraq war might be a mistake. Okay, so they're all goners. And everybody on TV starts waving the flag. In this case, it's happening even quicker. So now the media, who told us all these times, we have learned our lesson from Iraq, we're not going to do that again. Well, here they come doing the same exact thing. First, we start with Chuck Todd, but turn on any channel you want now. You turn on CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, they're all saying the same thing. Here's Chuck Todd talking about how weak the president is if he doesn't act.
But it's not just him, it actually is impacting the entire Democratic Party. We did some issue testing between, who better handles which issues, Democrats or Republicans. Took out Obama. Republicans lead by 38 points on the issue of ensuring a strong national defense.
Oh my God.
38. He's on the precipice of doing Jimmy Carter-like damage to the Democratic brand and foreign policy.
Now, look, that poll is devastating. I think President Obama exudes weakness, not because he didn't do more bombings and more war, but because he comes out and he's like, I don't know, who should I follow? Should I follow the Republicans? They're telling me to do bombing. Okay, I guess I'll do bombing. He looks so sad out there. That's why they think this guy's not strong, not because of the policy, but because of the way he follows the Republicans and Fox News no matter what they say. It looks pathetic, right? So I don't mind him quoting the poll, but then he adds on there, starting to look like Jimmy Carter. Now, by the way, who's the only president in our lifetimes who's gotten peace in the Middle East? Oh, right, Jimmy Carter. You wouldn't want to look like that guy, okay? Oh, yeah, in Washington, the name Jimmy Carter is toxic. Like, oh, Jimmy Carter, yeah, that guy was weak. He got peace. War, we need war. Obama, no, if you don't want to look like Jimmy Carter, you might want to act here and act with more bombings and more war. All right, so that's MSNBC over there. Remember, they're supposed to be the liberal channel. That was a show hosted by a former Republican congressman who's massively conservative, with a guest who's now the head of Meet the Press, who's saying you're going to look like Jimmy Carter if you don't attack. Okay, now let's go to Fox News. That's supposed to be the conservative channel, and they are. Many funny things said here by their analyst, Peter Johnson.
We may witness the rebirth of a new President Obama tonight. Maybe the adopted brother of George Bush, born of the ashes of Ground Zero. And so in choosing the eve of 9/11, the anniversary of 9/11, is he unabashedly now wrapping himself in the American flag, in the same flag that he has skewed? Back in 2007, he said he wouldn't wear an American flag pin. He's cast off his own history in terms of terrorism, and perhaps this is a new President Obama, inspired by one too many nightmares of a city in flames, triggered by one too many intelligence briefings that he's probably getting about the threat of ISIS in Iraq, Syria, and maybe here in New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, or any city in America.
All right, so let's break that down. First of all, here's a president wrapping himself in the American flag. He's the president of America, so I'm not sure what else he would wrap himself in. If anybody's going to wrap themselves in the flag, it would be the president of the country, right? It's a bizarre criticism. Number two, he says, he's ignoring his own history on terrorism. What's that? Maybe killing Osama bin Laden, that history? What part of history is he ignoring? Like, he's implying that he's soft on terrorism. No. Bush and Cheney never got bin Laden. They never got the guys who did the worst terrorist attack in American history during their watch. That's soft on terrorism. You can say a million things about Obama, and I don't agree with his policy here, and I have said a million terrible things about Obama. But he's not soft on terrorism. Ask bin Laden. Oh, right, you can. He's at the bottom of the ocean. Okay? Now, the more relevant point in this case is, here's Peter Johnson from Fox News giving Obama a pat on the head. Good job. You're the adopted brother of George Bush now. You see, now you might be learning that just like we told you, every city in America, Chicago, New York, et cetera, is going to be on fire. That ISIS is somehow magically going to attack us when they, by the way, before we bombed them, had never attacked us. They didn't even do 9/11. Al-Qaeda did 9/11. You want to go after Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan? I agreed with that. They weren't in Iraq. But in this case, ISIS didn't even attack us. We bombed first, then they killed 2 of our reporters, which enrages me, and they're a horrible, horrible, horrible group. The question is, what do you do about him? Here it says, oh my God, if you don't want Chicago and New York on fire, you're going to have to attack. And it looks like he's going to attack and declare more war. Fox News approves for a day or so until they turn on you. But right now, in the lead up to war, ooh, good job, Obama. Good job, good job. And now here comes Chris Matthews.
They want a strategy that doesn't include any casualties at home, in the homeland, that ominous phrase, or any casualties overseas, or any engagement on the ground. What kind of a war is this? No casualties, no fighting on the ground, but we win. How do you fight a war like that? And what dreamland is that they're talking about? And I think they are people that hate us probably more than we hate them. And so they're going to keep fighting. And if we raise the stakes and put in more air power against them, they're going to raise the stakes. And they may attack us here at home. It's all part of the real world we live in. The world we don't live in is a world of total security at home, no ground engagement overseas, no involvement in Iraq or Syria or Afghanistan. We get out completely, but somehow we stay in and win an air battle or with drones. Again, you can't win a war that immaculately. You've got to get your hands dirty and you've got to take casualties. That's reality. I hope the president brings that to the American people's attention tonight, that a war is a war, and people get hurt and they get killed. And any other kind of war is illusory, I think.
I got an idea about who's illusory. All right, so first of all, if he says, look, it's unrealistic to do a war with no ground troops, et cetera, as he just did, that part I have no problems with, and I agree with. But the other parts where he adds in, now, look, they hate us more than we hate them. Well, they were busy fighting a war in Syria and Iraq in despicable ways, but they weren't busy attacking us. We started attacking them. I'm not saying we're at fault. Okay, I hate the guys. I love that we bombed them in the case of Mount Sinjar when we rescued the Yazidi. But I would have drawn the line there. That was to prevent genocide, okay? Other than that, they didn't attack us until we started bombing them on a mass scale. Then they kill our journalists. They might have killed the journalists anyway. I don't trust them at all, okay? But for us to turn around now and say, they hate us so much. But they had nothing to do with us. This is exactly what the libertarians talk about all the time. Until we became the police force, and there are upsides to being the world's police force. I hate ISIS. If we could actually get rid of them in a clean way, again, that's fairyland, okay? I don't think that we can do that, and that's part of the problem. But if we could, and I could push a button, I'd do it today, right? But the problem is once we get involved, it gets messy. So that's part of Chris Matthews' point. The other part, though, is they hate us, so we got to take action. And you got to get your hands dirty. You got to get your hands dirty. You got to take some casualties. It isn't enough to just bomb them. We need ground troops. Let's rush into war. Let's rush into war. Let's take casualties. Let's get our hands dirty. Now, I remember Chris Matthews saying this in another instance before another war or during another war. Let's take a look at that.
Probably the greatest gamble since Roosevelt backed Britain before World War II. The president deserves credit. This gamble comes through, and it's not clear yet. If his gamble that he can create a democracy in the middle of the Arab world and he does it, he belongs on Mount Rushmore.
That was before the Iraqi elections, and if you remember the purple ink on everybody's fingers, the elections went off smoothly, and they came out and said that was a success. So according to Chris Matthews' metric, in the middle of a disastrous war in Iraq, George Bush belonged on Mount Rushmore for the decision to invade Iraq. Now, of course, later, Chris Matthews would turn around and go, what, me? I was never for the Iraq war. Watch.
It's Frank's essential thesis that they sold us this bill of goods, the administration did, you know, Bush, Cheney, Rumsfeld, all of them, about the Iraq War, and you and the rest of the media went along with them, or like enablers with an alcoholic.
No, Don, you can check everything. Get your Nexus Lexus out. Get your Google out. Get your every column I've written from the day they started talking about Iraq has been against it. Now you're chuckling because you know damn well you pulled my chain here. I have been a voice out there against this bullshit war from the beginning.
Oh, from the beginning. Right after I said we should put Bush on Mount Rushmore for that same war. And here comes Chris Matthews talking about getting your hands dirty, taking casualties. And later he will turn around and all the same press will turn around and say, what, us? No, we were against it from the beginning. I can't believe Obama went in there and he didn't even ask Congress. Wait for it, because it's gonna happen. Amazingly, the one voice against all this is Brian Stelter at CNN, who's saying, I wonder if the media is pushing President Obama towards further escalation. Wonder no more. They most certainly are. But before we leave you, I've got to give you one more Chris Matthews clip here, because remember how hard Chris Matthews was on George Bush all those years. Watch.
You know, I felt sensitive. I was with him last night, the president. We all went to see the president. You were there, went to see the president for our Christmas. You got to get your picture taken with him. It's like Santa Claus, and he's always very generous and friendly. And I was wearing a red scarf, and I wanted to look a little bit festive for the occasion, look a little preppy. And he came up to me and said, look, Matthews, I didn't know you're that preppy. This is the president of the United States after his biggest victory. And he goes, I didn't know you're that preppy. And I said, well, you know, went to Holy Cross, but you guys started with all this stuff. The Yale guys started with all this stuff. And then he started kidding around. I felt like I was too snappy with him. I felt he deserves a little, he deserves a lot of respect for this.
Do I have to say anything?